Hello and welcome to Inside Story, our twice yearly celebration of books by local authors, and by local I mean Western Washington, hosted by SCBWI, which is the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. My name is Dana Sullivan, and I want to introduce my fabulous co-host, Barbara Davis Piles, who has been a pipe organ demonstrator, farmer, prison psychologist, and author of 3 acclaimed picture books. Johnny Sensel, our behind-the-scenes tech fairy, who by day teaches blogs, and writes many books for both children and adults. And Karen Lewis, our timer, trivia queen, and raffle goddess. Karen is the author, illustrator of a bunch of beautiful books, and lead singer in the all-kid lit garage band Band Books, now on her hiatus. Big shout out to Claire McElroy Chesson, events coordinator at Village Books and Paper Dreams in Bellingham, Washington. Yay! All of the books being presented today, and a lot more, by the way, are for sale at Village Books, either in person or online at the link in the chat box. Somebody please paste that. So please buy some books. That's how this thing works, by the way. You write books, you guys buy books, we buy groceries so we can make more books. Anyway, it's a wonderful circle of life. There will be 3 book giveaways at the end of our presentation, so stay tuned for those because you must be present to win. Free books, yeah. You will be chosen by a secret random process. I'm grateful for you all being here. I think we're all getting kind of zoomed out, but we also have come to realize how wonderful the technology is for getting us all together. So, and that wonderful technology is telling me we have 100 people, 117 maybe, registered to watch today. So yay, and it's going to be recorded so you can watch it later if you get sucked into the Seahawks game, which I had no idea was happening today. Sorry, Johnny, Seahawks fan. Inside Story started in 1998 when authors Laura McGee Koznovsky and George Shannon created a forum where authors and illustrators could celebrate their new titles with local booksellers, librarians, teachers, and other friends of children's books. It's been going strong ever since, and I'm incredibly proud to be a part of it. So, without further ado, let's find out who is here today. Johnny, would you launch the poll, our first poll of who you are? Well, it looks like 54% of you are authors or illustrators, 8% of you are teachers, librarians make up 16%, love those librarians, and 22% of you just love to read kid lit. Well, who doesn't? So great. I wish you could all just punch them all. Great to have all of you here, every single one of you, especially Barbara Davis Piles. Take it away, Barbara.
Yes, thanks everybody for being here today. I can't vouch for the excitement of the Seahawks game, but I know for a fact we have a fantastic lineup, and it's more exciting than a monster truck rally for sure. And to get us started, we are going to meet Amanda Obler. Amanda grew up in New Hampshire, where she fell in love with the outdoors, snow, and maple syrup. She enjoys experimenting with paleo baking and torturing her children with long-winded scientific explanations when they ask simple questions. Total mom win right there. She lives in Seattle with her family and their small but ferocious dog named Bear. And now Amanda will tell us the inside story of her new nonfiction picture book, Galloping Gertie, the true story of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapse.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to be here today to share with you where I got my idea to write my book, Galloping Gertie, the true story of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapse. And in order to do that, I have to go way back to my freshman year in high school. Here's my freshman yearbook photo. And my freshman year, I had Mr. Burgess for general science class. And I remember exactly 2 things about his class. I remembered that Jeff Wolfendale was in the class. I had a big crush on him. It was the 80s, hence the mullet. And the second and more important thing I remember about the class is that Mr. Burgess showed us a video of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge collapsing. Now, I was just astounded that this bridge made of concrete and steel could twist and turn the way it did. And as we learned more about the science behind it, I was amazed to understand that the bridge literally tore itself apart. It became like a an engine running under its own power. And to this day, if anybody who studies engineering learns about the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, it's famous all over the world. Now, when I was a freshman in high school, I didn't even know where Tacoma was. So many years later, when I moved to Seattle as an adult, and I realized that Tacoma was nearby, it got me thinking about the bridge again and how I wanted to write a book about it. And so I started to do some research. And as I did that, I realized I really needed an eyewitness account of the bridge collapsing. But the bridge collapsed in 1940, so there just aren't that many people around who saw the bridge go down. So I put up posters in assisted living homes and senior centers asking if anybody had seen the bridge collapse. I didn't hear anything back. So finally, as a last-ditch effort, I put a 2-line ad in the Tacoma Tribune. And I heard back from a couple people, but finally, I got an email from a man named Dale Worsing, and he eventually became the main character in my book. You will have to read my book, Galloping Gertie, if you want to learn more about Dale's story and the collapse of this infamous bridge. Thank you very much.
Perfect timing.
It's great. Thank you, Amanda. That was fun. Now I want to learn more about him. And how great that you could put a line in a newspaper. What's a newspaper, right? Say the kids. Next up is Donna Barba, Donna grew up in a tiny desert town in central California, surrounded by agricultural and oil fields, and a restricted pioneers cemetery behind her house, where she first wove imagined tales using crumbling headstones for inspiration. Today, Donna lives in Issaquah with her husband, 4 kids, 3 dogs, and a frog. Her recent book, Lupe Wong Won't Dance, was the winner of the Plura Belpre honor, the PNBA award, and SCBWI's Sid Fleischman Award. Donna is here to tell us about her picture book, El Cucuy is Scared Too, and her middle grade novel, The Last Cuentista. Take it away, Donna.
Hello, I'm going to go out of order. I'm going to do The Last Cuentista first. That means the last storyteller in Spanish. And first, I must share what I think might be the most beautiful cover I've ever seen. This was illustrated by Roxanne Manakis, who is a fabric designer in the Philippines. This is her first book cover. I will put her Instagram in the chat. So if you want to follow something really super magical in her illustrations, it will be there. This book came about through a short story prompt, and it was, and maybe I started writing that short story about 8 years ago, and it was take a traditional fairy tale and make it sci-fi. And I didn't want to use a fairy tale that got a lot of screen time like Snow White or Cinderella. So I chose Princess and the Pea without any idea what in the heck I was going to do with it. And I decided to write about a girl who travels across the universe, but her P, or pellet of extended animation, I know, super cheesy, fails during this journey and she doesn't sleep. And this concept just haunted me for years and years. And so I started writing the novel a few years ago. And ironically enough, it was in Johnny Sensel's Liminal Places classes where I first started writing this. And the whole book just like blew up for me, the characters and all, you know, the setting and everything else. So if you ever have a chance to take a class from Johnny, do it. That was a side note. This is published by Levine Guerrero, and this is, I think, their third publication year that this will be in their third launch, and they're a newer publisher. It was Arthur A. Levine's new imprint from Leaving Scholastic. There's that book. And then this is El Cucuy is Scared Too, published by Abrams Kids, and the cover art is by Juliana Perdomo. And I will put her, if you want to be happy and look at really happy illustrations, I'll give you her Instagram link in the chat as well. This story as well was, I took a picture book class on the urging of my agent, who said, try writing a picture book. Well, I didn't know anything about writing picture books, and I think a lot of us get in our comfort zone, and I just wanted to try something different aside from middle grade and young adults. So the writing prompt was take the thing that scared you the most as a child and try to make it cute and adorable. El Cucuy is kind of like the Mexican boogeyman, and there's no cute about him. There's no way to make him cute. He's horrifying. And grandmothers and aunts would scare you and say, go to bed or El Cucuy's going to eat you. And he had long, claws, bloody claws and fangs. And I was always horrified by El Cucuy. I was sure he lived in my grandmother's closet. And so I wrote a book about a boy named Ramon who is starting a new school and has moved and is worried about his clothes and the way he speaks. And suddenly El Cucuy, who is the scariest thing in the universe, isn't so scary anymore. There are other things that are scarier. So that is the story behind El Cucuy is Scared Too. And
That's fine.
finally, really quickly, Lupe Wong Won't Dance. This isn't a new book, but it's available in Spanish as of this week. And Lupe Wong No Baila. So if you have students who or ESL classes who want to learn and read in both languages, this is huge, and it's really important to people who navigate two languages like kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. That's fantastic. Thanks so much. All right, next up we have Martha Brokenbro. Martha is the award-winning author of fiction and nonfiction for young readers. She teaches at Vermont College of Fine Arts and runs writing retreats through nothingtonovel.com. She founded National Grammar Day and likes dogs and cats equally well. And honestly, who of us can really say that? Martha, tell us about your new young adult novel called Into the Blood Red Woods and your new picture book, I Am an American, the Wong Kim Ark story. Take it away, Martha.
I'll start with Into the Blood Red Woods. Like Donna's book, it's a fairy tale retelling, and it's also one that came from a writing prompt many years ago. I think it was 2009 at an SCBWI writing retreat. And we had Patty Lee Gouch give us what I consider the best writing prompt for a story ever. Have your character be told by someone who has absolute power over them to do the thing they least want to do. And so I imagined a girl living in a castle with no friends but her pet rat, who is told that she has to kill all the rats in the castle. The book expanded far beyond that. My ultimate idea is, what if everything you read in fairy tales is a lie? And so this is the story of Ursula and her brother and their fight for the throne. It's also really a book about how the patriarchy harms us all, how so many of our narrative constructions make villains out of much more heroic characters. It has lesbian werebears in love and a very appealing young werewolf. That's out from Scholastic. And my other book, I actually don't have a copy because my husband drove off to the football game with it, but okay, that's the cover. It's illustrated by Julia Quo and it's co-written with Grace Lynn. This is a book about the 14th Amendment, which seems like a weird thing to write about for kindergartners, but really it's a book about the man who gave us birthright citizenship. Wong Kim Ark was born in San Francisco in 1873. Not long after that, the government passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which meant no Chinese person could come in. After his parents left, he tried to go and visit them and then come back. And on his second return trip, he was imprisoned unjustly. He had never lived anywhere but the United States. His case went to the Supreme Court and gave us the what's called birthright citizenship. So if you're born here, you are an American citizen. It's an incredibly important book. And this is a precedent that means a lot. If we did not have birthright citizenship in the United States, some babies born here would not be citizens of any country in the world. That's horribly unjust. It's also politically unstable. And so this is the first book for young readers about him. He's a very little known figure. Even my co-author and illustrator, both of whom are Chinese and Taiwanese in ancestry, they had not heard of him. And so I'm absolutely thrilled to bring his story to the world.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing that story to the world, Barbara. Oh, sorry, looking at the wrong one, Martha. And it sounds fascinating. And I did put a link to the website where you can buy the book and see that cover. So yay. Next up, we have Vicki Conrad, who is a teacher and writer living in Seattle. Her first picture book, Just Like Beverly, was a Junior Library Guild Gold selection. Received a starred review from Kirkus, which is really hard to do. and was chosen as one of NPR's best books of 2019. Her second picture book is a science-based biography about an ecosystem and one woman's fight to save it from development. A Voice for the Everglades was released in October of this year. Vicki loves history, nature, independent bookstores, and sharing her love of books and writing with children. Give us an inside scoop about your nonfiction picture book, A Voice for the Everglades.
Got it.
Vicki Conrad.
I began researching this book just when I was reading a simple science anthology about women in science, and I came upon this one, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I had never heard of her. And I saw that she was a major activist in Florida and saved the Florida Everglades. I don't think I'd ever been to Florida when I began researching this book. I had no idea what the Florida Everglades were. Soon, I ran into a lot of obstacles when I started to write this book. Most picture book biographies start with a person's childhood. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas had an extremely traumatic childhood. She was raised by a mentally ill mother who took her away from her father at age 5, and she was raised in an isolated, really lonely childhood, but thrived in school. And as soon as she graduated from Wellesley College, she married a con artist who tried to steal money from her father, which led her to be reunited with her dad, and he sent her on a train down to Florida, which was one of the best things that could have happened to Florida. And all of that beginning was very not kid-friendly to start out a picture book. Soon, I realized that there was so much more to this story, and I took 2 years researching the Florida Everglades and how it was formed, and realized it was basically one of the most unique and incredible ecosystems in all of the world. And then I soon realized that the Everglades was also the character that had to be woven in here, and I still didn't really know where to start. I sent a version to my agent who said, I can't send this to anyone, and said, we've got to start over. And there has to be a better way to tell this story than just talking about bad legislation and bad politics in Florida. So I, after researching the Everglades and all the water tables and how it all worked and every flora and fauna in it, I took 2 weeks at winter break from teaching, and I thought about this story, and I thought about how we're all connected, and that nothing works well in nature if it's not all working together, and about how an ecosystem is all connected. And the Everglades wouldn't work if Marjorie didn't speak up for them to save them. And so that is how I came up with a lyrical-based biography about Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I began the story with the birth of the Everglades. So I hope you share it with children. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicki. Okay, I'm turning it over to Karen Lewis, who's got trivia questions for us about.
Indeed, I have trivia. This is non-trivia trivial. So first trivia question, I collect teacups. Oldest one is about 75 years old. Who said this? There's the poll. Poll should come up. What's your vote? Will it be Suma? Will it be Karina? Will it be Will? Ending the poll. It looks like voting is for Karina Luken. And the real answer is Will Taylor. Interesting. Number 2. We got number 2. Oh, there you go. As a child, I went for many years to the wonderful, fun, and gruesomely named Camp Darkwaters in New Jersey, where campers wrote our names in toothpaste on the cabin walls. Okay, who's going to be, what we got the votes for? Is it Donna Barba Higuera, Dana Sullivan, or Julie Pashkas? By the way, if you hear shrieking in the background, I'm in my studio, and there's some cockatiels who believe it is their turn to talk. So that's what you hear in the background. They're actually voting for Dana. They're in the background saying, Dana, Dana, ending poll at, sorry, Liz, you're wrong. Actually, it was Julie Pashkas. Let's go to trivia number 3. I've lived in 21 different houses, 13 of them before I was 15 years old. I also attended 8 different schools before graduating from high school. The life of an Army kid. Who could it be? Let's get the voting going. Is it Rebecca Van Slyke, Eric Odie, or Luciana Powell? I'm gonna end the poll in 3, 2, 1, ending the poll. And the answer, in fact, is Rebecca Van Slyke. Very moving story, I must say. And let's get this last question for this round, and then I'll leave you. I was a short order cook in an ice cream shop in Martha's Vineyard. Made a lot of Philly cheesesteaks. Came home greasy. The voting's going up. A lot of votes for Nina Laden. Andy Chow Musser coming in a distant third. Sunday Frasier. The votes are going. The votes are going. Ending the poll in 3, 2, 1. Most of the votes for Nina Laden, and the answer, in fact, is Nina Laden. Thank you for your poll. Your trivia. I will see you in a bit.
Alrighty, next up, we have Sunday Frasier. Sunday's novels feature interracial families and curious, thoughtful, and intrepid kids. These include Brendan Buckley's Universe and Everything in It, for which she won the Coretta Scott King Award for New Talent. The Other Half of My Heart, and Cleo Edison Oliver. Her books have been nominated for 12 state Children's Choice Awards and the Washington State Book Award. Hooray, Sunday! Now, tell us about your new middle grade novel called Mighty Inside.
Thanks, Barb. I would love to do that. And no, I've never been a short order cook, but I do sometimes get greasy. So, all right. So my grandparents married in 1941, and they moved into a house my grandpa had purchased by stealth. No one would show a home to a Black person in the area where he wanted to live in North Spokane. So he found a white man, an ally, who posed as the buyer and bought the home for him. As soon as the neighbors found out who was actually moving in, however, hate mail showed up on the front porch and a petition started circulating to get them removed. They persevered, and I grew up visiting them in this house without a clue as to what they had gone through to get it. When my grandmother told me this story, I knew it would one day form the basis of a novel. 20 years later, here it is, a story to honor my grandparents and Black people in the Pacific Northwest, to showcase the small Black community in Spokane that I remember, and to shed light on the ways racism shows up here in the Northwest, systemic as well as interpersonal. So this novel reveals the reality of restrictive covenants, wording in deeds that forbade Black people from owning homes or even living there unless they were live-in domestics. And this is what my grandfather confronted and found a workaround. This is just one piece in the very large and complex puzzle of forced segregation and denial of resources and generational wealth to Black people that has resulted in the disparities and the justified anger that we see today. In the vein of the Watsons Go to Birmingham 1963, One Crazy Summer in the Parker Inheritance, set in 1955 Spokane, Washington, I think this story will make a great jump-off point for educators and kids to discuss our current situation by giving context, to talk about how we got to today by looking at some very real history couched in a story about a relatable 13-year-old boy who just wants to be accepted, to talk to the girl he likes, and to speak up in class, but who struggles to do so because he has a stutter. Any kid who's ever felt like they had a limitation that caused them to doubt their abilities, and isn't that all of us really, will relate to this story. Melvin learns he has the power within to make a difference, which I believe is also true of all of us. So I hope you'll share this story with your kiddos and your students and help them to find that power within to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunday. And what a timely book, and a nice book that puts the lie to the, oh, that can't happen here. This is not the South, or whatever other lie we like to tell ourselves. Moving on to Nina Laden, who doesn't like to fit into categories. She writes, draws, paints, cooks, forages, and makes books for a living, but prefers to live off the land and see as much as possible. She used to live in Seattle, but now lives on Lummi Island. Her new book is a love letter from Mother Nature to the reader. Nina, give us the inside story about your picture book, Dear Little One.
Thanks so much. Okay, the year was 2018, and the previous president was in office, and I was not happy. I was really worried about the climate. I was worried about the future of our planet. I was worried about children's futures. And I have always had journals, and everything in my writing and my art starts in them. And in 2018, which was my 35th journal, on August the 13th, 2018, which actually happens to be my mother-in-law's birthday. She's no longer with us. I wrote this poem that was a love letter from Mother Nature to the reader. And the original title, if you can see it, was Love, Mother Nature, Love, comma, Mother Nature. And I sent this to my agent, who then sent it to my editor. I had done 2 books previously with Melissa Castrillon, and we thought this could be the third. And she loved what I wrote, but didn't think Love, Mother Nature was the right title. And she changed it to the first line, which was Dear Little One. And then this brings me to the mushroom problem. In my letter from Mother Nature to children, I told them I wanted them to be enchanted by mushrooms. I love to forage, I love mushrooms, but my editor doesn't like mushrooms and thinks they don't belong in children's books. So unfortunately, the mushroom had to go away, and I replaced it with ferns. So now there are ferns in the book. And I'm really excited. I have a surprise to tell everybody. It's going to be announced tomorrow, but School Library Journal has chosen Dear Little One as one of the best books of 2021. And I couldn't be happier. And also, I will let you all know that Melissa Castrillon and I are doing a 4th book together. I hope you will enjoy Dear Little One. Thank you so much.
Oh, Nina, that is wonderful. And thank you for sharing your good news. Beautiful. And I'm sorry about the mushroom. Really. Unfair. Next up, we have Karina Luken. Karina is the author illustrator of The Tree and Me, as well as the New York Times bestseller, My Heart and the Book of Mistakes, which has been praised by Entertainment Weekly, The Wall Street Journal, NPR, and more. She is also the illustrator of Nothing in Common, written by Kate Hoffler. Adrian Simcox Does Not Have a Horse, written by Marcy Campbell, and Weird Little Robots, written by Carolyn Creamy. She lives near the Salish Sea in Olympia with her husband, daughter, and 2 cats. Karina's here to tell us something super good about the latest Marcy Campbell picture book she's illustrated called Something Good.
Hi, everyone. I'm here today to tell you about this, Something Good, my second picture book with Marcy Campbell. And the inside story, I'm going to give you before I do that, actually give you a little peek at the case of this book. So you have a little teaser of what's to come. So the thing about this story is that as an illustrator, I love when I get a picture book manuscript that does not have any art notes at all. And my first book with Marcy Campbell did not have any art notes. The Adrian Simcox Does Not Have a Horse. So I really had an opportunity to show that book and the horse and to decide for myself whether I wanted to show the horse or not and how I might do that. And so Marcy knew that I appreciated that. And so this second book with Marcy had almost no art notes, but it actually did have one. It had one art note, which sometimes they are necessary. And this one was, and the art note was that we would never show the Something Good. And I joke with Marcy now, I'm like, you really did not need to put that art note in either, because I never would have showed, or I'm sorry, did I say something good? The something bad that begins the story. We never show what it was. And I never would have wanted to. And it's part of why I wanted to work on this project, is because she also did not want us to show it. And so what we do instead is we start the story, we have end papers, and as soon as we turn the page, we jump right into the action, and we have our classroom full of girls who are all lined up for the principal's office. There's no title page at the front of the book. The title page is at the back. And we never find out throughout the course of the entire story what the something bad was, and that was written on a bathroom wall, which is why they're all lined up at the principal's office. And so the reader is allowed to decide for themselves what that might be, or to wonder, or in the case of children of different ages, to kind of put whatever is related to their life or appropriate for them into the story in that way. So it was a joy to illustrate this Something Good during kind of a dark time. I was working on this, and it was a great fun to do another book with Marcy. And what got me started was the fact that we were not going to show the Something Bad. But that's also something that made some publishers not want to publish the book. And so this book went to auction, and we had a number of publishers actually drop off because they thought we needed to show the Something Bad. And that's often the first question that we've been asked in interviews. And so I just think it's really interesting that she and I and the editors that it ended up with were all so united in our adamant belief that we would not show that, which is not the vision everyone had. So a little inside scoop on something good.
Wonderful. And what a gorgeous cover. Again, another gorgeous cover, Karina. And yeah, just tell Quentin Tarantino that you always need to show the big thing that he doesn't want to reveal. Anyway, so good for you for sticking your guns on that one. Next up, we have Vikram Medan, who used to be a techie till one day he finally came to his senses, quit his job, and now paints and writes books for kids. His self-illustrated poetry collection, A Hat Full of Dragons, received a star review from Kirkus. Another Kirkus star. Landed on 7 best book lists and is a finalist for the Texas Bluebonnet Award. He really thought he was going to illustrate Bobo and Pup Pup, but his publisher said no. Vikram, tell us about your early reader graphic chapter book series, Bobo and Pup Pup.
Hey everybody, so my inside story starts a long time ago. I think I was about 16 or 17 and I made a sketch of a little monkey. So this is my first sketch made 16 or 17 and I really loved the sketch. So I was like, this is the best monkey sketch ever. And throughout my life, wherever I went, I carried that monkey sketch with me. And I kept trying to think, what am I going to do with this monkey? Maybe someday I'll be able to do something with it. So I gave the monkey a name and the monkey was called Bobo. And then I kept brainstorming ideas for books with Bobo. And then one of my ideas was a book where Bobo and Super Pup save the world. And this is just brainstorming, nothing's happening, decades are passing, no progress. Eventually I land an agent and my agent says, hey, if you want to write books for a younger audience, you know, there's this book that's the series that's finishing. And I know editors are kind of looking for something similar. So what are you thinking? And I said, perfect idea for Bobo and Papa. And so I spent some time, came up with a proposal for a graphic chapter book, which had a lot of graphics. So I wouldn't have to write as much since I'm not a trained writer. And then sent it to my agent. She said, oh, it's great, but I hate your monkey. But she didn't say hate. She said, your monkey is not appealing for kids. So I had to go back, redesign these characters. I thought they were still cute. And then we sent the proposal out and the publishers, people came back and said, sorry, we don't like your art. And so they found an artist called Nicola Slater from the UK. And she's done a wonderful job with these 2 books. I love how the art has come out with these 2 characters. There are 2 more books planned, and these are perfect for elephant and piggy fans. So if you know any kids in that age range, show them these books early. Reader graphic chapter books, hits all the check marks. Thank you.
Wonderful, Vikram. Thank you. And I would have let you draw it, but oh well. Now it's time for some more trivia questions. So Johnny and Karen, take it away.
First trivial question. Who wrote the following quote? My go-to comfort binge TV show for the last few years has been The Great British Baking Show. Oh, come on, this is everybody, right? No? Huh. All right, who's it gonna be? Is it Suma, Vikram, or Kristen? The voting's going on, the numbers are still changing. I'm gonna end the trivia in 3, 2, 1. Come on, last vote. And poll. Votes are for Suma, and yes! Everyone is correct. Next trivia question coming up. I spent parts of 5 summers wandering around the desert with only cattle for company. This is such a moving tale. And they weren't very good company as opposed to the other moving tale. Who would have said this? Was it Martha Brokenbro, Curtis Manley, or Vicki Conrad? The voting is fast and furious. Numbers are going up and down. Click your mics, people. Who was wandering with the cattle? Ending polls in 3, 2, 1. Votes are for Curtis Manley, and Curtis Manley is correct. Congratulations, voters. Then the next question. Here we go. As a child, I collected snails in empty mayonnaise jars and hid them in the garden. One day the snails escaped and my unauthorized snail collection covered the entire front of our small home. When my dad tried to clean them off, the cleaner stripped the paint off the house. My snail collecting days were over. Who brought this quote? Was it Donna Barba, Amanda Abler, or Rebecca Van Slyke? Put your votes in, folks. I will close the voting in 3, 2, 1. The poll is ended. The voting come in for Amanda Abler, but actually it was Donna Barba. Donna, my last book was called Let's Eat Snails. So you and I should get together. Next question. I'm still scared of my closet due to a viewing of the movie Poltergeist when I was 8. I think we could vote for just about everybody here. Is it Kristen Varner, Will Taylor, or Amanda Abler? See, these are pretty even. Everybody can imagine an 8-year-old in the closet. Closing down the voting in 3, 2, 1. Poll is ended. Voting came in for Kristen Varner. Where is the answer? It's actually Amanda Abler. Fantastic, folks.
All right.
And that's our last question. Take it back to Barb.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Next up, we have Curtis Manley. And I have to say, can I speak for everyone and say, Curtis, we are waiting for the cow book now. But anyway, Curtis grew up interested in the birds, raccoons, and deer that lived in the woods near his home in Western Pennsylvania. But over the years, he began watching smaller things more carefully, tiny creatures with many legs or no legs at all. His favorites included stripy specks, bumblebees, and fireflies. Curtis lives near Seattle with his wife and a cat who is not exactly a rescuer of spiders. Curtis, tell us about your new picture book, which clearly does not feature a feline, called The Rescuer of Tiny Creatures.
Actually, it does have a feline in it, but you'll need to read it to find out about it. So each of my books includes aspects of my life and the things that interest me. But this new book is probably the most personal one yet, even though I'm not a redhead like Roberta. Roberta rescues worms, insects, and other small creatures, even though her classmates make fun of her for doing it. And in many ways, Roberta is me. And every rescue that's mentioned in the book is actually something that I've done. I have a cup in a card for catching small things. I actually have a little origami box when lots and lots of tiny creatures are in one place and I need to relocate them. I let millipedes wander around on the palms of my hands to see what they can find. And just like Roberta, I was bitten by a dragonfly when I was trying to rescue it. And in fact, that rescue took place in this flower bed, which just happens to have a dragonfly sculpture in it. I did not plan it that way. So creating stories based on personal experiences, whether they're large ones or small ones or even tiny ones, is something that even young writers have fun doing. Just because a writer starts with things they already know doesn't mean that they might not be surprised of where the story takes them. Near the end of the book, when Roberta is figuring out how to rescue 100 tiny spiders from her classroom, she doesn't actually realize that she's also rescuing her frightened teacher and classmates. And until it was pointed out in a book review, I didn't realize that either. just like Roberta. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chris, you rescuer of tiny things and teachers. That's always great. Next up, we have Andy Chow Musser, who grew up in a mixed race family in Oregon, where he was homeschooled in a small house filled with books and art supplies and surrounded by a big garden. Today, he freelances as a picture book maker and motion graphics designer from atop a cozy hill in Seattle, not far from wild forests and magical woodland creatures. When not in the studio, Andy can be found making music, talking to his houseplants, reading library books, and planning adventures. Andy's here to tell us about his new picture book, At Home Under the Stars. Take it away, Andy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dana. This is my book, A Home Under the Stars, and it is about a young boy named Toby who lives in the country, but then moves to the city. And the city's very busy and overwhelming, and he feels lost. So he goes on a magical adventure to find a sense of home again. And throughout this book, you meet lots of different animals. There's a lion, there's a unicorn, there's even a big dragon. And also there is a introduction to constellations. And today I thought I would share a few of my favorite Easter eggs that I tried to pack into the book. So I live in Seattle, like Dana said, and so I tried to fit in some of my favorite Seattle locations. I, of course, got the Space Needle in there. I put in the Fremont Bridge. Here behind the unicorn, I have the Seattle waterfront a little later in the book with the ferry, which is one of my favorite things to ride. And it's probably hard to see through on the computer screen, but if you look at the beginning and its end spreads, the animals are hidden throughout, because part of the story is about being lost and found and finding your way home again. And I think the last thing that I'd like to show is underneath the jacket, there's a different case cover, and probably impossible to see on this camera, but on the back there's stars, and they're the constellations of all the animals. And if you lay the book flat, you can line the placement of the animals correspond with their constellations on the back, which I think is really fun to look at with little ones. And that's the inside story of my book, A Home Under the Stars. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andy. That is a beautiful and brilliant book. Thank you. Next up, we have Eric Odie. Eric is a widely published children's author and poet and a national award-winning children's songwriter. As a middle school English language arts teacher, Eric is passionate about helping others discover and express their creativity, which is awesome. Eric and his wife live in Port Townsend. His picture book, Stop That Poem, is Eric's sixth title from King Miller Books. Tell us about it, Eric.
All right, thanks so much, Barb. So yeah, my name is Eric Odie, and I think the one thing that I'd really like to share with you about Stop That Poem is where the story idea came from. This is the first book I ever had where it began with an image, and so that image was in this notebook. You won't be able to see this because it was done in red ink, but way up here in the corner, you'll see this wagon, and you'll see this person stacking words. And that's where this story began, was with that image of stacking words one on top of the other. And then eventually I just kept on brainstorming where those words could go, and they could end up in the trees, and they could end up in somebody's hair, and they could end up flying out of the back of a bicycle and getting blown about by a bus, and eventually there was also ideas for the wagon and a ladder and a dog running away with the words. And fortunately, at some point, I quit using red pen and I started using black. And there's even an idea for the words landing in water and someone having to go out and pick those up, and somebody sweeping them up with a push broom. Anyway, I guess that's what I wanted to share with you, was that it began with images. And then from there, I started sketching around with what this book could look like. And I have to apologize because I know that a lot of illustrators hate receiving illustration notes. And I don't usually provide illustration notes, but on this one, because of the book absolutely wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't make a bit of sense if I hadn't provided some illustration notes to let the illustrator know what was behind the story. Jai Ting Chen did the illustrations. She did an absolutely beautiful, beautiful job. And there you go. So that's Stop That Poem.
Great job. Thank you. I love hearing how some books start off with pictures rather than words. A lot of mine, that's the whole way to go. So cool. Eric's actually a pretty darn good illustrator too, by the way. So don't let him fool you. Next up is Julie Pashkas. Julie is a painter, illustrator, and author. She has illustrated more than 30 books, many of which she also wrote. Writing about the Wordy Book in the New York Times, Naomi Shihab Nye described it as a classic, folkloric, and elegant. Julie is here to tell us about two picture books, the Wordy Book and the Barking Ballad. Take it away, Julie.
Thank you, Dana. And also, I think my book and Eric's book would go really well together, all these words. So the Wordy Book, as the title implies, is a book that revels in language. It's just filled with words. And I don't know if you've ever tried this, but sometimes you take a word and just say it over and over again. As a kid, I remember going carrot, 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 until it made absolutely no sense. And it became something strange and just something other than itself. And that's kind of what I was going for in this book, was to make you appreciate words, not just go right to what they mean, but think about how they sound and how they look and how they bump into each other. And the whole book is filled with questions, and it's meant for meandering. For example, in this page, the question is, can the inside be bigger than the outside? And it's in the pictures with a person inside of a dragon and a dragon inside of a person. And then every word in this page has another word hidden inside of it. For example, inside the word safari, you can find the word afar. And my hope is that with this book, kids will meander and amble and wander and stray and gad about and play and stroll and just explore to destinations unknown. But even with all these words, sometimes you want something other than words, and that's where this book comes in. It's called The Barking Ballad. It's a bark along, meow along book. And the genesis of this book was I built a little cranky theater, and I wanted to do a story that was filled with audience participation. And I took a poem from Oliver Goldsmith, the elegy on the death of a mad dog, and rewrote it and made a new story using the same rhymes. And then the pandemic came, no audiences, no theater, no crowds. And I thought, hey, you could do a bark along book, not just a bark along theater thing. And that was the genesis of this book. So my story is about a cat and a dog that become friends. And in the book, there are little red circles. And every time there's a red circle, the kids bark. And every time there's a yellow diamond, the kids meow. So it's lots of fun to read. Gets very, very loud with lots and lots and lots of red dots, and ends with one tiny quiet meow. And I hope that you will have fun exploring both these books, exploring words, language, meows, yips, barks, and you can even tweet like a bird. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for Julie Thesaurus Pashkas for that wonderful inside story. Now take it away, Johnny and Karen again for some more trivia.
All right, more trivia. First question. I am a Bond film fanatic. with a special fondness for Roger Moore. I most identify with Miss Moneypenny, played by Lois Maxwell. Who does this quote belong to? Curtis Manley, Eric Odie, or Kristen Varner? Voting is fast and furious. I'm going to end this soon. My mother went to the very first James Bond film, and she stood in line to buy the very first ticket for her James Bond film. She went to see the latest Bond film with me. So she could go to see James Bond with this person. Ending poll. Voting says Kristen Varner, and the answer is Kristen Varner. Fabulous. All right. Question number 2. I once worked on animation for a Tyra Banks musical video. Who could that be? Is it Andy Chow Musser, Nina Laden, or Julie Pashkas? We both know that Nina or Julie could do it, but would Tyra know to call them? I'll let her know. Okay, ending the poll in 3, 2, 1. And it is, in fact, Andy Chow Musser. Congratulations, Andy. Congratulations, voters. Another question coming up. I wrote and co-produced a bare bones budget community theater musical, 7 Clever Pirates, which included such nearly memorable songs as There's No Way Like the Norway Way. I want to see this musical. Is it Karina Luken, Eric Odie, or Vikram Medan? And it is Eric Odie. Eric Odie, in fact, co-wrote and produced 7 Clever Pirates. So is that all 4 of our questions? No, here's question number 12. I have built trails on the side of Mount St. Helens. Aha. Who is it? Is it Karina Luken, Will Taylor, or Curtis Manley? The voting's more even here. Clearly, we believe any of these authors is capable. 1. The voting was close. The end, the pollers chose Karina Luken, and it is, in fact, Karina Luken who has built trails on the side of Mount St. Helens. Congratulations. Thanks for your trivia votes, and we'll turn it back to Barb.
Boy, oh boy, I'll tell you, this group, you guys are all amazing, and I want to see that musical as well. Totally. Next up, we have Luciana Powell. Luciana is originally from Brazil and moved to the US in 2002. Drawing was a favorite pastime in her childhood. She's worked with all kinds of analog media, but now her work is mostly a mix of traditional and digital media. In the US, she has lived in Los Angeles, Chicago, San Diego, and since 2017, she's been here in the beautiful and inspiring Washington state. She says that the colors, vibrancy, and warmth of her home country still inform her work today. A sunny optimism, humor, and warm human interactions permeate her depictions of characters, animals, and landscape. She is here to tell us about her illustrations for the nonfiction picture book, A Little Round Panda on the Big Blue Earth. Now, due to supply chain issues, Luciana's book is on back order. I wanted to let you all know that, but will be available before Christmas. So order your copies like right now, or rather when we're done here, but right away. So take it away, Luciana.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. I'm going to talk today about Little Round Panda on the Big Blue Earth, which is the second book on the Big Blue Earth series. The first one was Tawny Brown Monkey on the Big Blue Earth. So these books introduce young readers to concepts of geography, as it takes you from the animal close-ups of animals and zoom out and all the way to the Big Blue Earth and our planet and their place in the world. So my inside story today is about 2 maps illustrated for this series. The first one was, so the Yangtze River in China is a part of this book too. It depicts all the way from the Sichuan Mountains where the pandas live all the way to the China Sea. And as I was doing research for interesting looking cities to put in this book, I found this city of 11 million people called Wuhan that I had never heard about. So I picked the school bridge and a temple and included in this illustration. 2 days later, I heard on NPR about this deadly pneumonia that was called the Wuhan pneumonia in the city in China no one has ever heard about. And I thought, oh, I had just found out about this city, interesting. And, as they say, the rest is history, as we all learned what the Wuhan pneumonia was. The second story is about ant papers. So both these books show countries and the continents and some cities and the range of our protagonist animal might live. So for the panda one, our focus was China. And so, these are illustrated maps, not meant to be very precise. A few months ago, my editor calls me saying that government officials in China had raised issues about the way it depicted the map. So initially he had a border around the map. And, we had to raise the map, and there were some contested areas in the map. And I used current maps of China to base my illustration from. And so to this day, we don't know exactly what they meant, but we are suspicious of, it was a Tibet area that they were contesting. Anyways, time was an issue, and my editor said, let's just use a solid color for the end papers. And I said, no way, I spent hours doing, illustrating this map. So I removed just the border where the map was, or the country was, and we sent out this art, just a general view of the continent. And a few days later, we heard it was approved. So, just imagine a government official picking over every page that gets printed there. So these are my two inside stories today. We all work from home, but who says we don't have international excitement and intrigue and drama in our lives?
Thank you very much, Luciana. That was very cool. And woof about those end papers. Yeah, I would love to argue that I spent hours and have my editor care, but yay. Next up, we have Suma Subramaniam, who is the contributing author of The Hero Next Door, the Penguin Random House, 2019. She is also the author of Centaurs and Fairies from Capstone. She sang for India how MS Subbulakshmi used her voice for change from Macmillan, and coming out in 2022. And Namaste is a Greeting, Candlewick, also 2022. She is the chair of the Children's Internship Grant Committee at We Need Diverse Books and mentorship program coordinator for SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, Western Washington. She hires tech professionals during the day and is a writer by night. Suma has an MFA in writing from Vermont College of Fine Arts. You can visit her website at sumasubramaniam.com. Give us the inside story, Suma, about your two nonfiction picture books, Fairies and Centaurs.
Thank you, Dana. These are the two books that I wrote last year. They released in August of this year. This is Fairies and this is Centaurs. And both these books are part of a nonfiction picture book series called Mythical Creatures from Capstone. So you can check all of them when you do. Now about fairies, there are 5 elements: air, earth, water, fire, and space that make up our world. And fairies live in any of these elements. They can be good or bad, and they appear the way they want to be seen. And centaurs have 2 hearts. Did you know that? And they're not only part of Greek mythology, but both fairies and centaurs have been part of art and literature and mythologies from other cultures too. So you'll find Asian fairies and Asian centaurs all tucked into the book. And so you can learn more about them there. And I wrote these books in the middle of the pandemic, and it was a good way to break away from the dark, depressing, and often life-threatening stories and experiences in the real world, and dive into some fun research. The illustrator for these books is Martin Bustamante, and he's from Argentina. And I had fun researching these books, but he had way too much fun illustrating them. And I'm going to show you maybe a couple of spreads from both books. This is one spread from the fairies, and I'll show you one from the centaurs too. So thank you all for listening, exploring, and reading them.
Thank you, Suma. They sound fantastic. I know somebody in my family who's going to need those for sure. Next up is our fearless leader, Dana Sullivan. He is the one who really makes Inside Story the happening thing that it just so happens to be. And honestly, I'm speaking for all of us, but I think we're all just barnacles on the Dana ship of progress here. But so thank you, Dana, for making it happen. And besides all that, Dana lives and makes books for kids in Port Townsend with Vicki and 2 dogs, one of whom, in fact, is dead. The final book in his Dead Max graphic novel series was published in August, so he's currently doodling Walking the Dog Who Is Still Alive and teaching picture book, illustration, and graphic novels for teens in person and online. Dana's favorite color is dog, and his favorite vegetable is peanut butter. Dana, please tell us about your middle grade novel, Dead Max Comics for the Furball of the Apocalypse.
I will. Thank you very much, Barb. Middle school is a tough time. It certainly was for me. My mom was alcoholic and mean, and home was not a safe place for me. So I went out looking to find my own pack. I think all kids are just looking to belong somewhere, anywhere. And the whole point of Dead Max is trying to get kids to realize that we are all weirdos in this school. We all have secrets, and to encourage kids to go out and do find their own pack. Adults, kids, anybody who may not even be related to, because we need to belong, and to provide them some hope and let them know it gets better. The themes of the book are alienation, peer pressure, bullying, racism, misery. I mean, that's of the series. So fun. It was really fun. But when I got to book 4, I just wanted to have a goofy, weird, no holds barred, zany story that could go anywhere, including Derek's mother, who happens to be alcoholic. She actually turns good, but only after she is swallowed and chewed up and spit back out by zombie robot piranhas. So that's very cool. And I want to introduce one member of my own pack, a very important member, and her name is Leanne Hatch. She's the very talented author illustrator who sent me this stuffy after Dead Max came out that she made. Isn't he cute? Of Dead Max, followed shortly by Derek, and his crush Kim. And then when Furball of the Apocalypse came out, this came in the mail. Finn and Gillian, my 2 zombie piranha killer machines. So who I love, they're so wonderful. So I want you to know, Leanne, you are getting my Dead Max Appreciation Society membership card in the mail tomorrow. I just want you to know how much I love my stuffies. I love my pack. And I'm really hoping kids will love Dead Max and find some humor and a little comfort in them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I'll just take it away, me. Will Taylor, yay Will, is a reader, writer, and honeybee fan. When not writing, he can be found searching for the perfect bakery, talking to trees and parks, and completely losing his cool when he meets long-haired dachshunds. His books include Maggie and Abby's Never-Ending Pillow Fort, Maggie and Abby in the Shipwreck Treehouse, and Slimed as Liam Gray. Catch That Dog and the Language of Seabirds coming in 2022. Will, tell us about your middle grade novel, Slimed.
Hey, everybody. I did actually a 4th grade visit 2 days ago, and they were all in their own homes, and one of them had a long-haired dachshund, and it just disrupted the entire event. We just had to stop for like a solid 10 minutes for this long-haired dachshund to talk. It was the best school visit yet. I'm Will. I write really silly middle grade. And this is my, okay, so my background takes away the cover sometimes. Yep, well, you can still see it. All right, it's called Slimed. This one we did under my pen name, Liam Gray. I wrote this one about 2.5 years ago, and for some sort of insider baseball reasons, we were thinking about trying to set up a second author brand. But then I got my author copies and Scholastic printed my real name facing the dedication page in big letters. So I was like, well, here we are. It's all me. I may as well own up to it. I'm really proud of this one. It's super goofy. It's based on my love of Goosebumps and R.L. Stine growing up. It's 100% one big episode of Goosebumps. It's about two kids entering a science contest they don't want to do, who end up accidentally creating a slime that turns all the grown-ups in town into zombies or slime bees. And then they have to really do a science experiment to find a way to fix it to bring all the grown-ups back. It's completely classic, again, like Goosebumps style. There's an evil professor called Dr. Quandary, who's based on Bill Nye, who scared me when I was younger, despite being local. And it's got a ton of my favorite thing in middle grade, which is getting access to places kids don't get to go. So we get to go in a lot of back rooms. We go behind the scenes at the grocery store, behind the deli counter. There's a lot of that kind of secret back room feel that I tried to put in my first two books. It was supposed to come out last year. It got bumped by a full year because of the pandemic. So I've got 20 seconds to tell you that that's why I've got 3 Scholastic books coming out in the next 6 months. Catch That Dog comes out in early April. It's because of Winn-Dixie, but if the dog was Bertie Wooster, basically. It's about a famous poodle in the 50s. Language of Seabirds is my first non-comedy contemporary. It's my first queer love story, 12-year-old heartache. Also Slimed, it's only $7. You can get it from Village Books. It's only $7. It's a quick read, and you should pre-order everyone's books at Village Books while you're on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. I just put the link to Village Books. $7, geez. Okay, I hope we sell out. Okay, hand back to Johnny and Karen for trivia.
One of my favorite. People are starting to vote. I haven't even read it. I can be seen on YouTube singing about my vicious little dog. I'm totally stealing this, but first I have to find a vicious little dog. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Looks like there's some inside knowledge going on. A lot of us for Sunday Frasier, with a lot of red dots of barking for Sunday Frasier. Yeah. What does your vicious little dog think about you? That's what I want to know. Okay, next question. I play rhythm guitar in a band of other kidlit authors, singing lead vocal on my songs Everybody's Making It Big But Me and Querying. All right. One looks like it's neck and neck between Eric Odie and Vikram Medan, but it is in fact Vikram. Everybody's making it big but me. I think he's starting to change that in a big way. Thank you, Vikram. Here's another one. I completed the Seattle Dance Skin all-women's triathlon 10 years in a row. Wow, that's a lot. Is it Sunday Frasier with her vicious dog, Vicki Conrad, or Karina Luken? Votes for Vicki Conrad, and it is in fact Vicki Conrad. 10 years in a row. Congratulations, that's quite a record. That's fabulous. One last question, folks. I was a balance beam state champion when I was 12 years old. Wow, talk about work-life balance. Is it Luciana Powell, Julie Pashkas, or Rebecca Van Slyke? I love watching these little bars go around. This is really fun. Voting, voting, voting. Who was on the balance beam? Oh, this is pretty close. Neck and neck. Could have been anybody. Ending the voting in 3, 2, 1. Wow, look at that. It's a tie. Luciana and Julie Pashkas on the podium together with Rebecca Van Slyke with the silver. But in fact, Luciana Powell is our winner on the balance beam state champion. Thanks, everybody. These are really fun. Great questions. Turning it back over to Barb.
Thank you. Next up, we have Rebecca Van Slyke. Rebecca has an MFA in writing for children and young adults from Vermont College of Fine Arts. She writes picture books, easy readers, nonfiction, and poetry. Besides teaching writing to adults, Rebecca is also a second grade teacher in Linden, so clearly she has superpowers. She shares her superhero headquarters with her husband and two very spoiled, and I must add, very well-trained dachshunds. Rebecca, tell us about your latest picture books, Goodnight Alligator and Lana Lynn and the New Watchdog.
Goodnight Alligator is my autobiography. As a child, I remember I hated to go to bed. I really clearly remember being told again and again and again, get back to bed, get back to bed, get back to bed. So this book is dedicated to my parents, Mel and Levon, with apologies for my nocturnal habits. The inside story of this book is that an editor gave my agent an illustration of an alligator riding a school bus and asked if she knew someone who could write a story to go along with it. So I wrote a story called Alligators Do Not Ride the School Bus, about all the things that alligators do not do, like go to fancy restaurants or wear ballet tights. The editor passed on it, but in submissions, another editor suggested that it would be a good bedtime story. So I changed it. And a fellow Aaron Murphy Literary Agency client and I talked about her illustrating it and submitting it as a package. And after several revisions, it went out again. It had so many close calls. It was going to acquisition meetings, but everybody passed because apparently in 2017 and 2018, alligators were the new vampires. Everyone had an alligator book in the works. So finally, it's the text sold to Catherine Jacobs at Roaring Brook Press, and it became Alligators Do Not Go to Bed, and then later on it became Goodnight Alligator. And the amazing Mike Bolt illustrated it. And when you're reading this, be sure to count the alligator's teeth, because indeed in the spreads where you can see all the teeth, he does paint all 80 of those alligator teeth. And I want to thank him and my agent too, Joan Paquette. Lana Lynn and the New Watchdog. In 2008, I wrote a story about a sheep wearing wolf's clothing. And as I was revising it and getting it ready to go out on submission, dynamic writer-illustrator team Helen Lester and Lynn Munksinger came out with a book called The Sheep in Wolf's Clothing. So that book went away. Scratch that story, I put it away. A few years later, though, I sent it to my agent who liked it, and she began to shop it around, and Kathy Landwehr from Peachtree bought it. And when it came out, Lana Lynn, Howls at the Moon, Kathy had asked me, do you have any other ideas for Lana Lynn? And I said, of course I do. So then I had to come up with some ideas. I submitted 2 ideas, and this is the one that Kathy liked. And of course, then I had to come up with a manuscript. So I did that too. Unlike Alligator, though, I think this manuscript had the fewest revisions. And the lovely Anka Sandhu, who brought Lana Lynn to life, also illustrated this one too. So be sure to look for Anka's hidden gems here, like the chickens who appear in a lot of the spreads. And thank you, Claire, for hosting this too. And I will sign any books that Village Books. So if you want to have your, just let me know who to sign them to. I would be happy to go down and sign them.
Cool. And, I should have mentioned this. All the books if you want your book to have a book plate, we all have sent our book plates to, I hope everybody did, to Village Books. So when you order your book, if there's not a space to say, I want a book plate, you just call them up and say, Claire, I want a book plate. And Claire will say, you got it. Okay. And that's yay, Claire again. So Kristen Varner is next. She is an author illustrator based in the Seattle, Washington area. Kristen received her degree in illustration from RISD, oh my gosh, Rhode Island School of Design, and has illustrated children's books titles such as Pink Cupcake Magic by Catherine Tagan, and created art for magazines, games, apparel, and toys. Horse Trouble is her debut title as an author and graphic novelist. Tell us about Horse Trouble, Kristen.
Okay, thanks, Dana. The inside story with Horse Trouble is that I did not set out to write a middle grade graphic novel. About 4.5 years ago, I was working on a picture book story called Horse Camp. And it was about this really cute little bunny that goes away to horse camp. And she is, I gotta show you how cute she is. She ends up falling off her horse while she's at camp. There we go. There's her little, there she is falling off her horse. When I sent the story to my agent, she had a really hard time with the falling off part and thought it was a little scary for picture book material. So we're on the phone talking one day, and I'm kind of stating my case as to why I felt like the falling off was so important and I really needed it in the story. And I'm saying, well, you know, falling off your horse, it can be scary, but it can also be really funny at times, and it can even be embarrassing. And I'm going on, and she stops me right there and she says, Kristen, you have a middle grade book. You've got a middle grade story. Would you consider doing a graphic novel? And I was terrified by this idea. Number one, I know how much work goes into creating a graphic novel. And number two, I felt like I had no business doing one because I don't come from a comic background. But I got over the fear, and I spent the next 2.5 years working on Horse Trouble. And it is largely based on my own childhood experiences. And it is, it does have a lot of falling off horses in the book. 10 times, as a matter of fact, my main character, Kate, falls off her horse. But what it's really about is a chubby girl that has body insecurities. And she finds out that riding horses is her way of battling those insecurities and getting over it. So I hope everybody has a chance to check it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. I cannot wait to read your cool new book. All right, now it is time for a raffle. Karen is going to raffle those 3 books. You must be present to win. The way it's going to work, she's going to draw them out. She's going to scream the name out. And if you are here, and Karen, you're going to need to unmute yourself and your cockatiels. If you are here, you're going to need, you need to say, I'm here in the chat box. And if you're not here, she's going to just keep moving along. So let's take it away, Karen.
Okay, and Dana, will you be willing to help me with these? Okay, I'm really, as an illustrator, I have a lot of practice drawing things. So drawing names, how hard could it be, right? Okay, here comes number 1.
For the raffle, and if you call Village Books at this number, call them and say, I won. We'll send this list to Claire. Yay, Claire. And Claire will make sure you get your free book that SCBWI will pay for. So there's at least 3 books right there sold. So you lucky 3. So you can just tell them whatever one you want. I want to do a big sloppy shout out to Holly Huckabee, our regional advisor for the Western Washington chapter of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, who keeps leading and inspiring our dedicated team of volunteers, these to provide amazing and literary programming throughout the pandemic with grace and humor. I also want to thank, again, my team, Barbara, Johnny, and look at it, Johnny is a snorkeler, and Karen, who's a cockatieler, evidently. So I want to thank them very much for all the help. And a big shout out again to Claire, yay, Claire at Village Books and Paper Dreams. SCBWI has been putting on a lot of excellent programming, which you can see at scbwi.org. And Holly's been leading the way to increase our diversity and inclusion of authors of all voices. So if you've got a book inside you dying to get out, you go to scbwi.org and join and find out more. Thank you all for being here. You all are wonderful. I love you all. Thank you for being at the Inside Story. And this will be recorded. So stay tuned. We'll send that link out later this week. Give me a little time, okay? Don't forget to order your books now, today, and order a cartload of them. And they'll be shipped to you, or you can come pick them up your own self. Meanwhile, I'm Dana Sullivan, and on behalf of SCBWI, thank you and goodbye. Yay! Thank Thank you all. Kill it, Johnny.